Folks, I wish I was as dedicated to anything as Joe Biden is to unconditionally supporting the Israeli military. It's just over the last few months, the president's popularity has cratered amongst his progressive base, which is not something you want to have about 10 months before an election, but he seems okay with it. Like on multiple occasions in the last month or so, Biden has been interrupted by protesters. Once he was speaking at Emmanuel Church, and another time he was speaking at an abortion rights rally in Virginia when anti-genocide protesters started, shouting him down. And what was so horrifying, if you guys saw the video clips of this, was the crowd's reaction. Like the crowd that Joe Biden was speaking to, whenever people were chanting "Genocide Joe" or asking him how many kids he's killed today, they responded with the grim, just the trite expression "4 more years." Which, but listening to it, like they're yelling about genocide and they're chanting 4 more years, like this weird, like darkly poetic statement that there's going to be 4 more years of genocide. And just my opinion, but a good look that is not. And I'm just wondering, does Biden realize that, for the foreseeable future, every time he goes out and makes these speeches, he's just going to run into more and more protesters, and like that's just going to keep getting worse and worse for him. And I just don't understand, John, what the hell is he thinking? What is going on here? I personally can't decipher his actions here at all.
I mean, we've talked about like Biden's actions and stuff, but like I think that you hit the nail on the head there. It's just there is this utterly dystopian picture that like there must be aides that and just even just individuals that do support Biden that can look at that and go, maybe stop the genocide and then chanting 4 more years in response looks a
Ugh,
little Hitlery. I
yeah.
don't know. Like it looks really, really, really bad. And it is actually shocking that the Biden campaign hasn't really done anything to stop that from happening because it is genuinely one of the most uh, bone chilling, like arms on the back of your neck sticking up when you see that because you're like,
Yeah.
these are the good guys. Say what you will. Like Biden is the good guy that we gotta kind of
Yes.
support, unfortunately. But like to see that he's just so okay with that continuing to happen is just like it's it's ridiculous. It hurts. It makes me feel pain of just like this is the reality that we're living in. And even if you support Israel and you're like some hardcore centrist liberal who loves Biden, you have to see this and go, Biden's making some mistakes here. This can't be the politically correct strategy for him to pursue. And that's been my point the entire time is like have whatever opinion you want. You're wrong if you're supporting Biden and stands on Israel. And I think you'll get there eventually, I trust. But like don't be attacking the protesters who are anti-genocide. Like the
I
people
think
who are saying stop killing thousands of children, you might think that they're wrong about something, but you shouldn't be negative against them, or else you get visuals of like you chanting 4 more years after someone says stop the genocide. It seems like it should be common sense, but it really isn't for a lot of liberals.
I was gonna say, I actually, to connect it back to chanting at the protesters that are anti-genocide, like just to hammer that in,
Mhm.
these are protesters that are against genocide, and instead of getting mad at the politician who is
Hmm.
not only powerful enough to actually change the course of the genocide, but is financially incentivized to continue it, to instead of getting mad at the person who's enabling all this to happen, you get mad at the anti-genocide protester? Like, your moral compass has to be so goddamn fucked up for you to think that that is an okay thing to do. And I think that that's also what we're unfortunately a lot more in store for what's to come in terms of this election year is a lot of just blue dog liberals who scream at people, you need to vote for Biden no matter what, instead of using that same energy. Like, if you think that Biden is better than Trump, yeah, okay, I agree. For the NLRB, that's the one that I think that differentiates them realistically, and that is true. However, right now, we are still in an election year. It is not like next Tuesday we're going to the ballot, Trump v. Biden. right now is the time to put on pressure to stop the ongoing slaughter. And that starts by putting pressure on the politician who is enabling it to happen, rather than just sitting back and being like, yeah, 4 more years of this because Trump. And it's like, no, that's not okay. Now is the time to put pressure so he does the right thing, not capitulate prematurely. Like, it's mind blowing. You're right. It's not only just dystopian, but it also further, to me, highlights the divide that exists between far left and the Democrat left, where they see the far left as the issue for this upcoming election, when it's not the far left, it's Joe Biden. It's the guy that you guys are supporting. So
yeah, that's sorry, go ahead, John.
Well, I was going to say the type of person that pisses me, not pisses me off the most, that's not the correct word, but the type of person that, like, their ideology annoys me the most is the relatively liberal, and this isn't like the most lib out there, but like one that recognizes that Biden's position on Israel is bad. Now, they don't, it's a large group. They have varying degrees of how bad it is, but a lot of them are starting to say, okay, no, I think that what Israel's doing is wrong, and Biden should be pressuring them more, at least. Like, they'll say that, but then they'll go and also blame the no votes, and it's like, if you think what Biden is doing is wrong and it's leading to the deaths of thousands of children, right? But you are spending your time and effort and energy on telling the no voters who are protesting genocide that they're wrong and they're going to cause a fascist uprising in America. It's like, no, that's your boy Joe. He's like, if you think he's wrong, and you like, then you should be like, oh no, that's his fault. Like, he aided a genocide, it lost him an election. It's not some fucking, you don't need to read the Communist Manifesto and understand theory to understand that people don't like it when thousands of children die, and that could cause political consequences. It's not the craziest thing in the world, I don't think.
Especially when they die with our tax dollars. Like, this is all stuff that, especially, and I think that Fetterman is also another good example.
Oh my God.
Of this, where right now his Israel position made the divide between the left and his group more obvious, because his group was obviously going to be pro-Palestine. They were progressive. They were like, that's the same base. And so when he came out pro-Israel, and he got mad at his base, being like, why don't you guys support me? It's like, well, it's because we are obviously going to be against the genocide. It's like, you just want to shake them really hard and be like, how do you not realize that the political consequences of your own actions is going to increase the likelihood of the far right success? And that's where, I don't know if you guys, like, I don't know where you guys fall in terms of your opinions on this, but like, there's some people who are so far on the left who think truly that the Democrats want to sabotage themselves, that they want to lose, that they want the far right to win. I don't think personally that they want the far right to win. I think that they do want the far right, that they want to be as close to the far right as possible with just a slim hair in between them, so that ultimately they can keep as much of the far right lobbying money as they can, i.e. Israel's money, i.e. oil money, i.e. healthcare money, without actually having to worry about giving up any of that financial power, while still being different by a hair than the far right. And it's like, I don't know. It really reminds me of that meme of the guy biking, and then he just sticks the thing in the wheel, and then he falls over, and he's like, my leg. And it's like, you did this to yourself. You could have stopped. In fact, you've had over 100 days to stop. And he keeps on going out, and he's like, oh no, Netanyahu, like, you need to watch out. Like, you need to take it back. And it's like, if you actually wanted him to take it back, then you take actual steps. You wouldn't just be like, tisk, tisk. Like, no, like, it's a genocide. You do what South Africa is doing, or you do what, honestly, the Houthis are doing. I'm not saying that I support them in everything that they do, but I support them in stopping imports in the Red Sea to put economic pressure on Israel. That is an action that I support. I wish that it was done by everyone else. I wish that it was the United States, where my tax dollars are going, that it would be used to stop the genocide rather than giving them more missiles. Like, Jesus, sorry.
Well, Leah, you're not taking into consideration the fact that what the Houthis are doing are making Amazon packages run behind. So you have to really include that into your analysis.
And also, Leah, the Houthis, I don't know if you recognize, the Houthis are brown. So
yeah, like, also very important too. Two
Very
great
important.
points I'm going to bring up
Yes.
here. So Leah, what you mentioned about how a lot of people have this like conspiracy theory that, well, you know, the Democrats, they actually want to lose. That's fucking insane. It's insane. I know it's something I've heard for a long time because you know, it's controlled opposition. What they want is the Republicans to be in power, and then they can fundraise against the Republicans and say, well, you can't blame us. We don't have money. We just want to get money to like our pet projects and our donors, stuff like that. That doesn't make sense because the best way to raise that money is to be in power. Like that's by far and away, that's how you're going to get the money. So the conspiracy doesn't make any sense. But Fetterman, I hadn't even thought about that. Fetterman, it's got like, you think the stroke has something to do with I don't know, but it's like what,
It is weird.
Here?
It's like what happened to him?
What happened?
It's just like you weren't a shill, and then you became.
Yeah,
I'm
like,
not
what
saying
happened?
that
Like,
strokes turn people into grifters.
Yeah,
but like,
I mean, I mean, it's not like he isn't even like what you mentioned, Leah, like your standard blue dog Democrat. Like he is way out there. Like
him and to tell you how much he was not a blue dog Democrat. Him and I were mutuals on Twitter.
Oh my
him
God.
and I.
Wow. Yes.
Him and I. And I'm like,
what the fuck?
So you're telling me that you weren't a progressive? Like,
yeah.
Yes, absolutely not.
I'm on, like, there's clips of me out there saying John Fetterman was one of the first politicians I was truly proud to vote for. I went to that voting booth and I was like, I get to write John Fetterman. I get to go, John Fetterman, he's my senator. And I was proud of it. And that, like Charlie Brown, when he goes to kick the football and Lucy pulls it away. Like, that's how I felt. God, I fell for it again. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's so bad. Like, I gotta say too, because like I didn't see Kirsten Sinema's heel turn coming. I didn't see it coming, but I didn't have like as much hope for Sinema as I had for Fetterman. Like, I was really excited, and to see this happen has just been a nightmare. But
he was one of two. By the way, he was like this came out today. Like the Democrats did in the Senate, like sign like a whatever resolution, one of those fake things that don't mean anything, but like to call for a two-state solution in Israel and Palestine, because Netanyahu was like, no, we don't want that, and like for whatever reason Biden's still supporting him, and and John Fetterman and Joe Manchin were the two who refused to sign it, and it's that is the bedfellows John Fetterman has now.
It's just like when you look at the UN and you look at all the votes, and it's like, should food be a human right? Everyone, yes. The three who say no, it's like the United States, whoever the United States bribed, and Israel. And
it's like,
and then the UK just going, we're going to sit this one out, folks. We don't have to.
We're not going to take a firm position on this.
John Fetterman, I don't know how the people closest to him, I guess, like, even if it is related to the stroke or like a, like a midlife crisis of like, oh no, I need to secure the bag for my children or something crazy. How do you not, as someone who's close to Fetterman, get disappointed? How do you not, like, you look that he's on the same side as Joe Manchin. Like, even his wife, he talked about immigration. He was like, it's a personal thing for me because my wife and her family and like all of that, that's why I'm pro-immigration. Now he's like, how dare you think that I would be against the saws that Abbott wants to put in the border? Like, how would you think that? Like, what gave you that idea? I'm like, I don't know. Maybe that you ran as a progressive, like,
and that's the other thing. That's the other thing. There was that Politico, and I love how this has become shitting on John Fetterman.
Sorry.
No, it's totally fine.
No, fuck that guy, of course.
I made a poster for him. It's personal. I was so mad.
It is, because like I was stumping for this man, and like there was a Politico article that came out. It's like, John Fetterman doesn't care what you think, and it's like, people were they're like, yeah, good for John Fetterman. You're every other fucking profession in this world, you can say, like, the CEO of Apple doesn't care what you think. Maybe that's a good thing. A politician's entire job is to care what I think. Like, oh my God,
it has been so. As a child, I remember being weirded out by this, where politicians become like Amy Klobuchar is the one that comes to mind. Not when I was a child, but I mean, like, you saw this a lot, where politicians would get on stage and they'd say, listen, I'm in this position and I'm here to make difficult decisions. I'm here to do the things that a lot of people are going to be upset about. I was like, no, you're not. Like, that's not why you're there at all. Like, you're there to do what you're told. That's what you're put there for. But they wear it like a badge of honor. It's like, I'm not going to be, tousled around by the winds of opinion. You should be. That's the only reason you're here. And, John, you mentioned that you love film. You're a cinephile and everything. I do too. I love film and I love literature and poetry and everything. And so, good phrase. Like there's a TV show called Rome that's an HBO show from a long time that was really good. And there's a quote from there that I thought about just now with Fetterman and how we feel so goddamn betrayed by John Fetterman and we never saw it coming. But of course you didn't. And the quote that I was thinking of was that no one's a traitor until they are. And that's what happened. Like, that's what we had with Fetterman. And but with Fetterman, I do have to say that his like weird heel turn is not as egregious as Biden's because he's in office for 5 more years, which is a long ass time in politics. People can forget a whole lot in 5 years. Biden's running again in 10 months. So his turn is kind of odd. But what you guys talked about, I think you both mentioned it, was this mistaken view by a lot of libs. And that they get really upset when people say that I'm not going to vote for Biden for X reason. Like the reason, usually is going to be the whole thing with Palestine. And they get upset and they'll put forth arguments saying, listen, I understand that you're mad about this, but you don't understand you have to vote for Biden because he's better, because, sure, he's going to do all these bad things. But if we get a Republican, we'll get a bunch of worse things. And then we'll start screaming at them and just berating them. And that has never convinced anyone to change their vote. And they get accused of like, oh, you're being entitled. Well, yeah, they're entitled. It's their vote. Like literally no one else has that power but them. Of course they're entitled. And also it is literally I use literally twice. It is actually the only power you have to make a politician.
It's your only leverage.
That is the only thing you have.
Like I can't lobby. I can't. I mean, like, I can join an activism org and I can do lobbying through there. But, like, ultimately, if I'm a progressive, that's not where the money is. The money is not in let's give people free healthcare. That's just me thinking that it is a human right. Like, and I don't know if you guys saw the clip of Kamala Harris where she was like, young voters need to understand certain things. And it's like having that condescending, patronizing tone, one, is never going to convince me. But two, coming from the one enabling and supporting genocide? Oh, hell no. Like, you think that you mean nothing to me now? Use that tone and it's only digging yourself in a deeper hole. Like,
do people not hear that and go, this is what my Bible studies teacher used to talk about? Like that's what the fucking conservative, like that's the conservative mindset. The young people need to shut up. Like, what the fuck? How do you not see?
It's literally children should be seen and not heard, but just in a nicer tone. And I'm like, that's just...
Well, or killed by a bomb. But the thing, TJ, the thing that you said that I wanted to harp on here is that it's that like, oh, I got to make the hard decisions. And you know what? Every once in a while, a politician has to sit down and go like, this is the right thing to do. It's unpopular and I'm going to do it anyway. And like that's FDR. That's the feeling that they're going for there. But it never works out like that. It's always the other way around for some reason. Like it's always, you got to listen to, the electorate when it comes to like supporting genocide in Israel. But like legalizing weed, no, we can't do that. Even though
codifying Roe v. Wade.
Like,
so sorry.
Exactly.
Yeah, have you guys talked to the parliamentarian? I mean, come on, we can't just do all that
shit. $15 minimum wage? Absolutely not. The parliamentarian, that's an unelected position, said no. But me skipping Congress to send bombs to kill children, I'd say okay.
Yeah.
And I think, but that's also why, so sorry, I just want to bring it back to TJ, because you were saying that it's completely impossible that they're self-sabotaging. I do wonder, though, because to me, and this is where I think I would maybe disagree most with maybe John, but I'm not really sure, and I don't want to jump the gun. Maybe we'll agree. But I do think that for me, that's where supporting the Democratic Party, I don't know if you guys saw my video about the bus, and then I was talking, because Austin, do you know your pal Austin, that creator?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He made a video about a bus and how, like, the bus
I saw that one, yeah.
And so I responded, and I just replaced Democrats on the bus was like my biggest thing of like, he put Democrats on a side that I didn't necessarily agree with, and then he responded. But point is that with the bus, of where Democrats are in terms of the bus is on the cliff and Democrats are holding it, in his mind, holding it down towards ground while the Republicans are jumping up in the back of the bus to make it fall into the cliff. And the leftists are the outside of the bus trying to yank the bus back off the cliff, was basically the analogy. And I guess with me, and Joe Biden is the perfect example of this, of although, yes, I understand the benefits for the NLRB, I 100% do, and I'm not an accelerationist. At the same time, I wonder, how do you guys see us getting out of this mess? Like, the United States just seems so gung-ho on this trajectory of funding Israel, funding oil, no matter what happens, no matter how many Americans are suffering, it just keeps on going. And so I'm wondering if it's like the UAW general strike in 2028 that gives you guys hope, or it's pushing Biden through Bernie, who is trying to toe the line best that he can to get as much political power with Biden as possible, which I disagree with because then it's ruining his legacy. Like, what gives you guys strategic hope?
So my answer to this question, and I'm someone, this is basically my position, right? Is that strategically speaking, I believe the best thing to do is to vote for Joe Biden. I don't think that if your issue over not voting for Joe Biden is his position on Israel, that doesn't make sense because the other option has a worse position on Israel. And so, like, the only reason to vote for Joe Biden is to, like, send this message to the Democrats. But we also know that that's not going to happen. Like, we don't have a large enough coalition for that to have actual significant electoral weight. The best thing to do is to keep the Democrats in office and reduce harm while continuing to build farther left coalitions, which is happening. We have more straight up DSAs, Democrat Socialists, in Congress than any point in American history. There are more people in Democratic, organized parties, socialist organized parties than at any point in American history. And what I think that a lot of, especially Marxist leaning people on the left, don't understand is that if you look at the grand span of human history, we are rapidly accelerating to get to utopia. Like, yes, if you look at the last 100 years, it seems like this terrible, awful slog, but like every single metric of human happiness and growth has been good. The climate change thing is a problem that could screw us all, and that has to be addressed. But everything else, like the economic revolution thing, I think we can get there through incrementalism. I think we can.
And I don't necessarily disagree with you on that, but that climate change piece is the one that worries me. And with Gaza, seeing the environmental impact that war is having, not only in the Middle East, that was obviously already warming up, as is the rest of the world, and seeing how war leads to climate change and how no matter how much Joe Biden's popularity plummets, he stays with Israel. I feel like that's how I feel also about climate change, of no matter how much his base desperately wants far like radical change policy for climate change, he just doesn't do it. Same thing with healthcare. And that's where I'm like, but climate change is the one where I'm like, that speeds up the timeline, where I don't necessarily disagree with you that we are exponentially increasing in like human rights, increasing in terms of like our popularity of our like thought and all those things. But the climate change piece, I'm like, do we have enough time for that? And if not, on the flip end, the devil's advocate to my position is, do we have enough time to do anything else? If we don't have enough time for incrementalism, do we have time to start from scratch? And I'm just like,
so I want you both to take what I'm about to say in the spirit in which it's intended. I want to make that very clear. So I'm just gonna give you the perspective from an older person, which I'm not trying to sound condescending when I say it. That's not. I'm just saying, like, I know how they're thinking. There's a reason that all these libs you're talking about, most of them are like in their 40s and everything. I understand, because we were young once too, and we all had dreams of walking over the ruins of the White House in a tattered red cape and like taking them down and all that. We know how that feels, and over the years, you realize, okay, that's not going to happen. Like we all had like these radical movements, and we all had like this idealized dream of what could work, and we failed. But we did get some modicum of success here and there. So what we're thinking is be as safe as possible and try to like get 1% instead of swinging for 50 and getting zero. And the closer you get to death, the more you realize, like, okay, man, maybe I could do some good here. And that's where they're coming from. Now, I'm not saying that. Now, I don't agree with them in like the berating people and cutting them down, because I always say the best option on this is what you should do, because like Leah mentioned, your vote is your only power. What you should do is threaten to not vote for them as many times as you can. Like that's the only way they will listen to you. The unfortunate reality is that we are nowhere near a majority of the population. Like not even close. There are we get trapped, like everybody does. We get trapped in our bubbles and we begin to think that our numbers are a lot larger than they actually are. They're pretty small. And so that's why Joe Biden's not afraid. I mean, because if he really
But can I push back a little bit?
Sure.
Because I do agree with you that obviously I am young. I can't disagree there. I am turning 25 next month, so I'm not going to say that I know everything there is to know. But I do think that, especially with that exponential increase, I think that we're at this unique tipping point where we haven't been here in the United States in a long time of this level of instability, this level of like we can feel it. Like all of us are kind of on edge. Like I don't know. I don't think that it's just my bubble that feels it, because I think that it's also the far right, and I think that the moderates are really nervous too. And I think that everyone kind of knows that we're slipping. And I think that that's where I think that it's the unique opportunity, not that we're there yet to have the coalitions, but similar to the civil rights movement, where it was just the right time. Like there's a reason why that specific movement of the mix between MLK and the more peaceful nonviolent, which is definitely not his only part of his legacy, and that should not be the only thing that he's remembered for, and having the flip end of Malcolm X. That's what propelled it to get, and Black Panthers, that's what propelled it to get to where it did so fast. And I think, like, I look back, like, obviously I'm French, so the French Revolution, it was originally not the biggest portion of the French group. Like it took a while to build that popularity, but once that they did, it was kind of that tipping point. And I'm thinking of that Lenin quote of the one that's like, God, I'm such the
walrus.
Tanky. I'm the tanky right now on this channel. But the Lenin quote of the one of him saying that sometimes there are decades where nothing happens, and then there are weeks where everything happens or whatever. And I'm thinking that we're getting at that point, especially with Palestine, especially with the young vote. And as the population demographic shifts so fast, and with the internet, I'm just wondering if like settling for maybe we can just win compromises is shooting ourselves preemptively in the foot. That it's stopping this sort of momentum that we're having of like, no, the system itself is broken. We need more. So I don't know if you guys think that I'm just nutty.
No, Leah,
but those are my thoughts.
I have a very acute response to this, and I'll throw to you, TJ. I've said that exact quote on this show describing what's going on in Israel and Palestine, because for many years, we all know this, but like we've been talking about Palestine and mostly being ignored. And finally, there is a critical mass of support for Palestine that it has become mainstream, and these things that just got hidden by the anti-Semitism, like, if you ever said about this, you'd be called an anti-Semite. So the normie person would just, I don't talk about this thing. It's too heated. It's not worth my time. Now, what they've fucked up is that they've made it mainstream to talk about. And the more people talk about it, the more clear and obvious it is that Palestine needs to be supported. It's not a very gray issue. Like we have been told for so long it is. And so I completely agree with you. But if you're looking for the tipping point that to like make the revolution happen, it's not now. In fact, it would be very bad to happen now. It's when the demographic shift happens. When the boomers die, and all of a sudden, we're talking like 20 years from now, where the giant boomer generation dies, all of that wealth does trickle down generationally. It will be a significant economic and cultural shift and shock, and that is when the chaos ladder is to be climbed. Right now, we're not there yet. We're close, and you're completely correct.
What do you think, though? so sorry, and TJ, I hope that you have a second, 5 seconds, but what do you think then in terms of, because I agree with you in terms of, I think that tipping point is later in the future, but I feel like the instability is coming faster than the tipping point is. Like the boomers are sticking around for longer than anticipated and kind of wanted. As much as I love my dad, he's a boomer. He's literally a Vietnam vet. So like love him, but like, you know, boomers overall. Mitch McConnell, bye-bye. Henry Kissinger, though. Anyway, so sorry.
They're silent. They're not even boomers.
Silent Gen,
Anytime
yeah.
that I get to remind myself that broke is dead. Anyway, so I do think though that instability is growing faster than the tipping point is coming, specifically with like Project 25, which is it's a legitimate fear. Donald Trump being asked, would you be a dictator, and him not saying no is terrifying. So like those things are real, and Biden is screwing up his chances for re-election. So like with that instability in mind, and us agreeing that Trump would probably still get voted for even if he is in jail, like where does that leave us?
I know that I'm of the position that like Biden isn't going to lose to Trump unless something significant happens. Like, and
really?
I think that
I am too.
The biggest thing that scares me is what we're talking about, is that this Israel thing suppresses.
That's what I think is going to happen.
But I think that this Israel thing won't be as impactful.
If this lasts until July, yeah, that's going to be bad.
But I think this lasts for 2 more months most.
Yeah,
but what makes you think that though? Because I think that Netanyahu has made it pretty clear, like his political career is over.
Yeah.
Netanyahu's suffering.
So he's going to try and continue it no matter what. And so I'm curious. I expect it, just because of Israel's interest, to continue longer, which is why I project that it would negatively impact Biden. So I'm curious about.
So yeah, I mean, I can't say one way or the other, like how long it'll last. I don't know, but I do know if it does last until the summer, yeah, then things are going to go badly. What I write down here, but as far as like how people are going to vote and everything, you were like, the reason that I don't know if John agrees with me, but the reason I think that Biden has a better chance than not to win is that I think, well, the 2 reasons I always give are the last 2 elections, and that. Remember what everyone said about the last election? Every fucking poll in existence predicted a massive red wave, and the Democrats overperformed by 9 points. Election before that, Democrats overperformed by 10
But that
points.
was with Roe v. Wade. That was with Roe v. Wade.
That's the second point. That's the second point, is that Roe v. Wade is Democrats are going to push the hell out of it, and it's going to work. It is definitely going to work, because we keep seeing stories out of Texas and out of Florida of women, you know, who go in
Kentucky.
and yeah, like horror story after horror story, and every time, even like states like Ohio or Kansas, when they put abortion on the ballot, it wins, and people will come out to vote for that every time. And so then you have the anti-Trump vote, which is very powerful. The anti-Biden vote, not all that strong. And the anti-Biden vote just won't show up to vote for anything.
Yeah, that's not an anti. We're not flipping to Trump. We're just
but normies is what drives elections. This is what you see every single. The people who decide it are not people like us. Like it's not people who live, eat, sleep, and breathe politics. It's people who don't pay attention except for like random shit they see on TV. And the vast majority of those people are going to go out and vote against Donald Trump, or they're going to go out and vote for abortion. So if they're voting for Democrats, people expect me to believe that they're going to vote for every Democrat and not Biden. That's not going to happen. So like, I think that if the election was held today, I still think Biden would win. But this is where I think Democrats or the libs get it wrong, the older libs and everything, is when they start, castigating people for doing the one thing they can do to stop the one man on planet Earth who could stop this genocide. Like the only person in existence who can is Joe Biden. And so like, if you want to threaten this guy, you have every right, and honestly a moral responsibility to do so. And what they get wrong about politics is that people think politics is about persuasion. It is not. Like, if you want to be successful, you waste all of your time trying to convince, some guy who uses, who has double utility for his bed sheets because they work as clothes as well, into voting, blue or something. That's not going to happen. Don't focus on persuasion. Focus on mobilization. Focus on getting people who otherwise wouldn't have gone out to vote to actually vote, and then you can make a difference. Like, that's how you actually make a change here. We have a massive portion of the population that doesn't participate at all. But yeah, I mean, when you have like the strongest nation in the Middle East boldly saying with their chest that The Hague will not stop us, I am not going to fault anybody for saying, sorry, I'm not voting for anyone who supports that. Like, I can't do it. Like, no matter if I think it's a bad decision or a good decision, hey, I can't argue with your reasoning. I'm not going to do that.
I think so sorry. I just think that that's my biggest pet peeve with the liberals is that they act as if this wasn't preventable. They act as if it is on the person who's withholding the vote rather than Joe Biden. And I think
Right.
that if they were just honest of like, this doesn't matter to me, like the far right, that's the thing that bothers us ultimately about Dems is that they play that fox, like that famous Malcolm X quote.
Oh, we talked about that last
like,
week.
yeah, of like the Democrat is more like the fox because he shows his teeth and you see it as a smile instead of he wants to eat you instead of the wolf. And so I think that that's perfect of the danger that comes with Democrat. And oftentimes, like back to Fetterman, that's what's so disheartening about being a progressive is that you feel like you will have made like even AOC like fought tooth and nail to get her in. And she was like, I don't care how much I piss people off and end up only being a one-term senator, like this is what I'm going to do. And that's not what she did. She ended up playing the long game, which like, okay, sure, I'll see how it plays out for her. And I'm not going to speak to it now. Like there are some times where she's on the right side, sometimes when she's not. But like, it's just so disheartening to constantly feel like we're getting tricked by the fox. And I think that liberals try to pretend as if they don't play that position at all, as if they are just friendly, as if they do just want
Yeah.
your best intentions. And I'm like, you literally chanted 4 more years after someone asked about genocide. Like, stop telling me that you're my friend. Like, just own up to the fact that it doesn't matter and that we need this alliance for right now and that we'll work together for right now. Just be honest with me instead of trying to like cozy up to me and then stab me in the back like Fetterman did.
All right, guys, thank you so much. If you've made it to this point in the show, that means you made it to the end, and the algorithm is going to send you more of our recommendations, and they're also going to send your friends more of our recommendations. So thank you so much. It really is the best thing that you can do for us is to watch this long. And if you haven't already, make sure to like and subscribe. That is the second best thing you can do for us. Before you go, I want to make sure that you get a chance to go follow Leah, our excellent guest, on all her socials. So Leah, how about you tell the audience where they can find you?
Yeah, so on TikTok, I go by Petite Leah. So it's PTITE.LIA. I'm French, so sorry that I made that complicated. And then on Instagram, I go by Socialist Sleuths, which I always forget that I'm going to have to say that forever and here on out loud. But it is Socialist, just regular, SLOOTS. So that's on me and bad decisions made in the past. But here we are.
Folks, you just witnessed 3 of the greatest content creators you can find on the World Wide Web. And whether your language is, English, a base Germanic-based language, or French, a beautiful, Latin-based language, be sure to follow all 3 of us and follow this page. Like, comment, subscribe, share it with your friends and family. We'd appreciate it, and so would they.